But this isn't just a London problem, violent crime peaking up and down the UK. How do we stop this escalating further?
Well, first of all, I want to send my sympathies to the families of the people that have died. In terms of stopping this further escalation, first of all, we need more police officers on the street. Here in Hackney, we've lost 1 in 4 of our police officers since 2010. And unless you have particularly community policing, where they're in communities, they're trusting, they're finding out what is happening, I don't think we have any hope of stopping this spike in violence. But we also need to look at what they've successfully done in Glasgow, which was the knife crime capital of the country and has been for decades. They have taken a public health approach, which of course means law enforcement, but it also means working with schools, with mental health facilities, with social workers, with youth work, to have a real chance of a solution. And the remarkable thing is that in Glasgow, since adopting this public health approach, last year they had no deaths from knife crime at all.
That is very much a long-term view, isn't it? That takes a look at wider society and, as you said there, public health. But in the immediate future, is it time to increase stop and search powers to stop knife crime on the streets of the capital and elsewhere?
Well, the wider public health approach, working with schools, working with youth workers, is the only thing that in the long term, but also the medium term, will bring down levels of knife crime, as they successfully done north of the border.
What about used in conjunction with stronger stop and search powers? If police feel that somebody on the street is carrying a knife, should they be allowed to stop and search them and take that knife off them before another person dies?
Evidence-based stop and search is vital in dealing with all types of crime, but random stop and search, which is what we used to have, the most thing they actually found was small quantities of drugs for personal use. Evidence-based stop and search is essential and has a part to play.
Where is Sadiq Khan in this? This is the Labour man that can actually do something about what's going on. There's been deafening silence from the London mayor over the past 48 hours, not only in his capacity as London mayor, but also in his capacity overseeing the Metropolitan Police as well.
Well, you have to remember that I think 70% of the Metropolitan Police's funding comes from government. So this all goes back to government policy, which has led to Sadiq having to close police stations, which has led to boroughs like Hackney losing their police officers. But Sadiq has spoken out on these issues, and he's very
before, but I'm just
committed.
interested as to why in the last 48 hours we've not heard from him. As you said, he's been very vocal on knife crime before. We have had representatives from the government on Sky News this morning and yesterday talking about knife crime, but we've not heard from the London mayor. Why?
Sadiq is very committed on these issues, and I think we should be thinking this morning about the families of the people that have died and offering them our sympathies.
I don't disagree with you on that, but people want to hear from the Mayor of London, as I said, very vocal on knife crime. If he wants more money from the government, if he wants to do something about stopping knife crime in the capital, why aren't we hearing from him?
To be fair, Sadiq has been trying to point out the consequences of these government cuts for some time. 70% of his funding comes from government, and it is government which has meant he has had to close police stations, and boroughs like Hackney are losing our police officers.
OK, let's move on and talk about Russia. That is leading our news agenda this morning. Russia trying to clear their name. You spoke yesterday in an interview and said that you thought Labour and the Labour leader were vindicated by being more thoughtful on whether Russia was behind this attack and asking more questions. I put that to Dominic Raab, the Conservative MP, earlier, and he said that you were wrong. The government has other evidence that is supported by 27 countries that Russia was behind this attack. Porton Down, the boss of that lab, said that while it's not within their remit to say who was behind it, their evidence leads them to believe it was state-sponsored. You do have to ask who else would have been behind it other than Russia. So I'm just wondering this morning, what is it Labour think they know that the government don't and those 27 other countries don't?
There's no question that the balance of probability in relation to the Salisbury poisonings is that it's either Putin or non-state actors. The Labour Party has taken the view, though, that we should be careful and considered and ask the right questions, and this is what we are doing.
But you're talking about the laws of probability, and when the government is saying we have evidence, we can't reveal it because it may reveal our sources, which we can't do, and 27 other countries have seen that evidence and are convinced Russia are behind it, why can't Labour get on board here?
We are on board. We supported the actions which Theresa May took in relation to expelling the Russian diplomats. But our understanding is that what the security services are saying, as the Port and Down was saying, is that it's a question of the balance of probability. And it's not helpful to say it's 101% certain that it's Putin. We want to go where the evidence leads.
OK, just one final question before we go. Labour and anti-Semitism, still talking about that and the Labour leaders' handling of the accusations and allegations of anti-Semitism within the party. This morning, we've had a statement from the youth officer of Newham Momentum Group. He says that he's witnessed more anti-Semitism in the past week than in the last 8 years in his local Labour Party, and that during this time, he has sometimes felt unsafe. Hence, he has decided to step down. Jeremy Corbyn, very much criticised in his handling of these anti-Semitism allegations. Does this prove that he's getting it wrong?
I'm speaking to you from Hackney. Hackney had the oldest synagogue in the country at Brent House Road. Hackney has always been a centre of the Jewish community, a historic centre. There, you know, in Hackney, we take these issues very seriously. I take these issues very seriously. The Labour Party and Jeremy Corbyn take these issues seriously.
And we think that is he going about it the right way? Would you have met with Judas before meeting with more mainstream Jewish groups and communities? Because it seems to a lot of people he's got this back to front. Would you have met with Judas first off?
The Labour Party and its leader thinks that anti-Semitism is abhorrent. I think so because, apart from anything else, I represent one of the oldest Jewish communities in the country. Every time these allegations have been made, we have acted by suspending people. We're now seeking, under a new General Secretary, to speed up the processing of these cases. Some of them have taken too long to process, but there is no question that the Labour Party is determined to root out anti-Semitism. It is vital. Anti-Semitism is another form of racism, and we are committed to rooting it out in our party and in society.
OK, Shadow Home Secretary Diane Abbott, thank you very much for your time this morning. Appreciate it. Lots of stories to cover there, so thank you very much.
You didn't frankly have the balls to put country before party.